two of our discussion on the crossover. Ravi and I kind of expand the conversation from just athletes being able to make political statements in the sports arena to kind of like why certain stories or certain scandals seem to have a stronger reaction from the public versus other ones. So we get into it. We dive a little bit outside of sports into pop culture as well too, referencing Bill Cosby and the R. Kelly situation, as well as kind of going back and forth from that to some of the sports scandals that have happened the last couple of years. So hope you enjoy it. Here's part two of our discussion. So here's the thing with Sterling, I think. Three things, I think. One, Sterling, for one thing, let's face it, the commissioner in this case let him off the hook. Okay, the fact is the commissioner's scared of litigation. That's what it came down to. No one wants to say that in this case because they want to protect Stern's reputation, but that's the biggest thing. Same thing we're seeing with what's going on with Goodell right now. If we had all the media outlets we had today when this was going on, because that's the second part of it. There was really no social media in this case for a lot of these things, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't as much exposure.
The push things forward, because a lot of times with these things here, you'll see a media people do an outlet and to do the story on, you know, pretty straightforward, middle of the road type of story about it. And in the old days, that would just die after a day or so. But what's going on now is the underground media in this case here, where you see Twitter happening, it builds a churns of momentum, blog spots, everything like that, and then it's all of a sudden it's like boom. It explodes, and it's all of a sudden you're like sitting here going, all of a sudden now the cable companies are now chasing what's going on that side. That's how a lot of these things are fermented. It's not like how the old days was like, okay, mass media, you drop a story, it's on 60 Minutes, we watch it, we discuss it at our water cooler table, like, oh wow. And then you might hear something later on from the mass media when they decide to bring the story again. And here's your point now, going back to some discussion, would be article, whoever's friends in the media at the time too, don't forget that.
Exactly.
Right. It's like, well, we'll push this guy much harder than we'll push this story. That happens too, folks. So let's call a spade a spade. Because let me tell you something. I guarantee you, if this story with Cosby came out 10, 15 years ago, which it did actually, so let me say that, it did.
It did come
It got snuffed in this case here, because in this case, Cosby was considered to still be valuable in this case, and he had friends, powerful friends.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we'll just do this little quiet story, off we go. It's on the back page of somewhere, so some dog could wipe his feet on that story, and that's it. Nowadays, don't forget how this thing triggered again. It was not really triggered by a story that was happening at the time. It was when the comedian went out on him at a stand-up show.
Exactly.
Right. Once again, viral it went. The video itself and everything else it happened with that, and boom, all of a sudden it took off. All of a sudden, the women in this case that were saying these things all the time got more credibility based on it. Unfortunately, sadly, because a man had to say so. That's a whole nother subject for another day. That's a messed up business. But hey,
that's part 3.
Yeah, exactly. You know, yeah. So social studies class part 3. but I think I think there's I think the Sterling thing in this case here, very similar to what you said before with I think the tape in this case, just how we saw with the Ray Rice, the video. True, you say the R. Kelly case, the video too, but I think timing is something to do with it because that was like early 2000s when it wasn't even close to what we see nowadays, right?
Well, obviously when the R. Kelly tape dropped, there was no social media to
There's no Twitter, there's nothing like that, right? So there's nothing like that. Because even you saw the difference when Chris Brown situation happened, you could see how it was much more explosive in this case when the photos of Rihanna came out and stuff like that, right? And I think what's happening now, when you see these videos come out, be it the Sterling tape, it's like all over the place. It's like boom. It's like you can't escape it. Same thing with the Ray Rice video.
I just think it's a very noticeable difference in reaction and public outcry with something like the R. Kelly tape, as opposed to something like the Sterling or the Sterling situation or like the Ray Rice situation, something like that. I'll be honest. I think with the R. Kelly situation, it was, if you want to say, I think it was actually celebrated to a certain extent. It was almost like urban legend. Like you go to any barbershop in the city and they had this tape going. Well,
true, but then again, they had, if we're going to call it a spade, they had sex tapes about all sorts of people. Don't forget.
But none of those people were underage.
Well, fair. No, I agree with that. But in this case, the mentality of any of the sex tapes, they're just looking to make $1. Sad to say. That's sad to say. It is the case. I mean, if any celebrity is doing anything with anybody,
I totally agree. Totally agree.
They're not gonna make $1.
I totally agree that the scandal that comes with the sex tapes is one thing, but I think we as a people, if we know that here's a guy with an underage girl in the video, and we're trying to make $1 off that, I mean, how much better are we?
Well, first thing, let's be careful here because I mean, true, I don't think we're gonna get sued or nothing like that. But in this case here, he was found not guilty. So let's just be,
Alleged.
yeah, exactly. So just in case we don't get like hit on someone, we got lawyers from Chicago hitting us up. So so it's alleged, right? So this is what all this discussion about these weeks, right? About justice in this case.
Exactly.
Who the justice is for, who the justice is not for. And like this thing, it really is. When you look at it, it really is messed up in this case here. I think what I do like with social media and what it does, to some extent, it has its flaws and its sins as well too. But it does keep stories in the news and keep things moving and pushes people to look further into stuff than maybe what was expected from most mainstream outlets. So I think the thing goes, as I said before, as far as the difference and stuff, I think with the Ray Rice situation and with the Sterling situation, what I think made those ones a little different, even compared to Cosby at the moment, is that you had a management issue involved in it that created a whole different dynamic to it, right? Because it wasn't so much that when let's face it, the video, there was already one video out with Ray Rice. Yeah. The video comes out, and I said so on my podcast that day. In this case here, the news just came out. You got 2 days. I said this thing's gonna be a you know what storm. Yeah, I was already talking about Michael Sam at the time. I said, you think this is a distraction? Wait, I just heard the news. Like, wait when this hits the fan. Okay?
Exactly.
And I said, you don't even know who Michael Sam is after this hits the fan. And I think the thing is, it was not so much because the video happened like all the springtime or something like that, and no one make beep about it. So to go back to your point, the news didn't happen then. The news happened in this case when management decided. In this case, the power structure decided kind of co-sign it. Yeah, that was the difference in this case. Same thing to some extent in this case with Sterling. Sterling was this case, okay, is management going to co-sign this was the question. Yeah. The players pushed their hand, which they obviously pushed in this case the sponsors, but once again, management was an element involved in it, how they were to handle it. Sad to say, power in this case is what draws people to, these mainstream outlets to focus on that in this case. Yeah. Sadly to say. That's what I think the dynamic is of why those two I guess those stories are running longer, and I think in this case of both of them, in this case, you had not only you had the visual or the audio, which you did in the R. Kelly case as well too, but you had the video audio in a different time frame. But you also had, like I said before, you had management making decisions as we're going. We're watching this happen as far as decision making goes. So it's like, okay, are the owners going to kick him out? Are the owners not going to kick him out? Are the owners going to have a vote? All this was happening right in front of our eyes, playing out, bit by bit. While those other scenarios, be it Cosby or Kelly or any of the other celebrities that got in trouble like this, it's pretty much drip, drip, drip. And that's it. Unless someone's going to put a file or a charge from a story standpoint, where does it go? Yeah. Right?
Well, I find it interesting, too, because, you have a lot of, when I hear people saying, this person should speak out or that person should speak out on certain issues, when it comes to stuff like, again, like the R. Kelly thing, I didn't see anybody calling for Quincy Jones to come and have a press conference.
But I think it's how we view, right, exactly. But I think that's interesting because I think it's how we view. You see, me personally, I think we view musicians in this case. There's a different standard for musicians. Let's call a spade a spade.
There's a different standard, right, but it doesn't make it any less wrong.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I'm just talking from the standpoint who speaks out about it and stuff like that. No, and I think also too, musicians are seen as islands unto themselves. Yeah. Right. There's no there's no association of singers. Technically there is in this case, but no, no one sees that as a visual saying we are part of this structure. To sports.
To go back to what you said, you kind of touched on the whole Chris Brown issue a couple years back. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, Chris Brown, musician, got into an incident. Mm-hmm. But again, to your point, the difference in the time frame as to when it happened. Obviously, the Chris Brown situation happened in the Facebook, Twitter era. Mm-hmm. So things were a lot more accessible and visible right away. Right. We didn't have to wait a couple months for a tape to come out or anything like that.
Yeah, if you go
the
back,
R. Kelly situation.
If you go at the artist for time, this ain't nothing new really to think about.
Because with the Chris Brown situation, we had every artist was on their high horse. Everyone was on their moral high horse.
Right, exactly. Let me start with that, okay? Because that's a whole. If I start digging up dirt on all of them, believe me. Okay, it ain't pretty.
Exactly.
So, like slow it down. I just sit there going like, okay, you can say your piece, but fair enough. You got your say your piece, but my whole thing is like, If you do the time, you do the crime. If someone wants to say take a chance on Chris Brown, whomever it may be, it is their right to do so. It is also your right as a consumer to buy or not to buy Chris Brown in this case here, whatever the case may be. But I also believe in this case, giving someone a chance in this case to go and have some rehabilitation in this case too, and if that's what they want to do,
No, I totally agree with you. But I'll say this last point. If you're a consumer and you're still listening to Chris Brown and you still love Chris Brown, I don't want to hear you say anything about the Ray Rice situation in a negative fashion. That's the way I kind of view it.
Fair enough, but I think
if you're still buying Chris Brown's music and you're supporting Chris Brown as
hold
an
on,
artist,
hold on. I can make an argument the other way. Hold on. If Ray Rice in this case did his time, right? Mm-hmm. And he did his time, and he went out and he's now a member of society after doing his time. Why should I be held as a consumer in this case to hold me in this case? I can't say something about Ray Rice.
Well, I say, to me, I look at it as, and I'm just, again, playing devil's advocate.
Okay, hold on.
If you're anti this person and he did the same thing, and I think a lot of it comes down to you just don't like that person.
Well, yeah,
that's what I think.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
So that's the angle I'm trying to come at.
Right.
Because I find when it comes to certain people, we'll give them a pass. Right. But with other people, like I said, you get on the moral high horse, and you're like, oh, that is so wrong. And you get on this whole other tangent where it's like, whoa, you just gave this guy a pass for the exact same issue.
But okay, let me use your example this way. This case, we got to wrap this up. Let me put it this way: if now here I am now. So I own a widgets company, for example, and now Chris Brown, he's not a singer, so he's just like dude in this case is looking for a second chance. He had same crime, and now he's taking a job in this case. And I'm looking to bring him in, he's to give an opportunity to work in the factory, where the case would be, with the opportunity. Even though I know he has a record, but I'll give him a second chance. Ray Rice video comes out. I'm still the owner of the place. Like, yo, what the heck? I'm still offended by the Ray Rice video, but I'm willing to give the guy a second chance if he's doing his time. And no one's going to say in this case the guy owns the widget company and say, you know what, you should really not hire that dude. You should fire him now, or you should have to say about Ray Rice. No one's going to tell you order that. You can still sit there and say, you know what, if he does his time in this case here, that's essentially what was the story in this case with what happened with the judge. Judge said, dude, that's what you did. You can't do double jeopardy on the guy.
I agree with you. I'm just trying to say when it comes I think for myself, for everyone that who's watching this right now, I think we all need to be aware of our own personal prejudices.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So I mean, whether that be the way we view certain artists, the way we view athletes, the way just a lot of social issues as a whole. That's something definitely to really be aware of.
For sure. As I said before, I'm like. I can be very, I am able to split and separate quite easily. Like, when Cosby's thing happened, I was like, yeah, okay. As far as not so much of what's going on, but more about him as a person, I wasn't like, oh, I saw a shot, and it rocked me to my core, like that. It's like, honestly, it didn't really, that surprised me that much,
And again, I mean, that goes back to our own personal prejudice, because I'm not even going to lie, I'm the same way. I was like, when I heard it, I was like, you know what?
It wouldn't surprise me.
I was like, Heathcliff Huxtable didn't rape anybody, but Bill Cosby, I don't know, maybe. Right. I was the same way. That's how much we loved Heathcliff Huxtable. Right. But for a Donald Sterling, we're ready to throw the book and everything else at him.
Well, I think Sterling's thing is in this case here. This is the part where it's like,
and he was just caught sleeping with a side chick. He got caught sleeping with a side chick.
Sterling
he wasn't doing anything different.
Don't worry. He had a lot of years of stuff built up.
He had a lot of. Totally agree. Totally, he had a lot of stuff built up.
That was sitting there waiting to cook for a while.
But he did. But what he got booked for was he got caught slipping with a side chick.
Well, here's the thing. Here's Sterling's thing. I think it strengthens your point. Sterling in this case here, this is when folks in this case felt guilty because they should have been dealing with his butt a long time ago. So then they went all in. All the chips got in once they got this one. It's like, well, you should have been like that when he's messing around with people in the housing, in his housing departments. When he pretty much destroyed Elgin Baylor's career. It might have taken Elgin Baylor, who in this case no one had any reason not to believe in Elgin Baylor before or after.
Well, I'm sorry with Elgin Baylor. I totally agree. I mean, with he had a lot of stuff, but with Elgin, some of that falls on Elgin as well, because he was there for
Well, yeah,
20
he
some
took
odd
it,
years.
but you can say
Who
those-
told you to stay there for 20 some years?
you
You're
know what?
Elgin
Well, you
Baylor.
know what?
You're telling
Well,
me you can get another
honestly,
position at the NBA?
Honestly, that could be always be. You always go and do a psychology report that's an abusive relationship. Honestly, I'm not saying it's a joke. I'm saying as reality. That I would not be surprised if you really did a deep dive into that relationship. And it ends up that you find out it's more of a abusive relationship, tendency of abusive relationship.
You know what? Maybe
You just don't think it because it's two men in powerful positions.
It does have the parallels. It
Yes,
does have the, it
I
does
would
have
not
those
be
parallels.
surprised. You know, and for some of the stuff you read, it's like, yeah, it is a bit of an abusive relationship, but
Because it's one of those things where I looked at it and I was like, "Come on, Elgin. I mean, like 20. You were an employee for this guy for 20 some odd years, and he was like this throughout, and you stayed, and you're
boy.
Elgin Baylor.
Well, let's leave it on the Elgin Baylor note. Wow.
Call it 20.
Yeah,
Call it 20, Elgin. Call it 20.
It was great talking to you again, Ravi. Man, we got to do it again next week. Some heavy topics
sir.
leading into the holiday season, unfortunately, but, you know, it's good to get these things out here, man.
That's right.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Peace.
Peace. Oh, hey, you know what? Before we go, where can the good folks find you?
At Mr. Ravi _Porvita.
And you can find me at Beyond Locker Room, short for RM. I gotta remember that, man. Jesus, 2 weeks straight. All right, man. Peace.
We out.